Hey everyone, welcome to episode 73 of The Green Life. Today's episode is spectacular to say the least. We're gonna dive into a very meaningful, deep story that could have really ended tragically, but actually resulted into a miracle. But a miracle that was due to taking responsibility, making changes, and never giving up faith. I am speaking to Skye Conway, or as in online known as Roar, Skye Roar. And I love that because it's a mix of raw, as in her raw food journey, but also roaring like a lioness because she truly is a fighter. We're gonna go through Skye's story, her battle with her health, or to regain her health after 32 years, literally being bedridden. Okay, before we get into the story and I'll tell you a little more about this fantastic human being, I want to just give a big shout out to Namawell for the J2 juicer. You guys know I love my juicer, and as a gift to you, I have a discount code in the show notes, so feel free to use it if you want to get yourself one. I do not make money out of this, it's simply a gift to you, and I personally use the Nama juicer, which was gifted to me by them, so it's a paying it forward kind of approach. But I do make a commission from Dr. Morse's herbs because I use them myself as a practitioner and as an individual, and I really want you to feel amazing. And if you want to get on a little cleanse or just support your organs to get healthier, go into the show notes for the link and for the 5% discount that I have for you, and feel free to buy from there because any income from that website does help my podcast. All right. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this beautiful story. You will love Skye. She is fantastic. She is inspirational. She glows. She has a truly amazing story, and I really can't wait for you to hear it. Okay, welcome, Skye. Hi, Skye. Thank you so much for joining me on The Green Life. How are you today?
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Sunny and it's summer, so I'm not going to complain. And of course, for you, it's winter still in the Southern Hemisphere.
It sure is, but it's getting warmer. And I mean, I can't complain because our winter days, like recently, we've had 22 degrees and it's a bit cooler because it's evening now. But yeah, we're lucky. We're blessed.
Yeah. I'm from South Africa, and same thing. Like, yeah, our winters are nothing like the European winters, and then comes September, it's spring, so it's perfect.
That's right. It all comes around so quickly.
Yeah, it's true. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I looked at your story. I think I found you through Facebook. We became friends through a couple of other raw foodists, and I was so inspired by your journey. And I feel like it's such an empowering story, also testament that food really is medicine. So I'd love for you to share what it all began for you, and how you actually got into this lifestyle and what you had to heal.
Okay. So first off, this all started when I was about 8. So I was 8 and I got chicken pox. From there, it was chronic fatigue, swollen glands, doctors, no one knew what was wrong. And I missed about 2 to 3 years of school. Eventually, they found my tonsils had been eaten away. I've never had tonsillitis. So they removed those and slowly I got well. So then I lived about 3 to 4 years as a normal, healthy child. And then by the time I'm like 15 or 16, it's chronic pain, hormone problems, could barely stand. I had such bad gastro problems. And I went to so many doctors and they didn't know what was wrong, but they treated the pain. So a lot of it was gynecological. So they were removing glands. I was having hormones, pain relief. I missed so much school. And then I came out of school and I was still unwell and they're still looking, and I just about given up. And another surgeon went in because they're doing exploratory surgery because I was in so much pain. I was in so much pain to the point where they did a biofeedback on me that they use for women who are in labor. And, you get a start point and you work you look at the screen, you work it down so that, you can relax your muscles. And for me, I was in so much pain, I didn't even have a start point. And that's how I lived, like in more pain than being in labor. So I was really distressed. I didn't know what to do. And another surgeon went in and he found what was called endostromatosis. So it was like a second piece of uterus on the uteral sacral ligament, and they hadn't seen anything like this before. But what that actually meant is it would increase the amount of, say, estrogen receptors I'd have in the brain as well. So my response to pain was quite high. Of course, this whole pelvic area nerve pain I had going on was contributed to that as well. So they removed this, and then once again, I still had like chronic fatigue and hormone problems, but for 2 years I could get and do some work, and I had more of a normal life. Then the pain came back. This time it was being treated with anti-inflammatory medications, more surgeries, more doctors. Then all of a sudden I'm getting severely anemic and I could barely get through work, to the point where I'm passing out around my house. And Mum found me and I'm vomiting and had diarrhea and rushed to hospital, and my hemoglobin was very, very, very low, and started giving me blood transfusions. So I'm still saying I've got all this back pain. And then they said they brought in a gastro doctor, and he said, is there any new symptoms? I said, look, at night I've got a bit of stomach pain, but it's not as bad as this back pain. He said, look, I want to do a scope. He said, it'll only take half an hour and you'll be home. 14 hours later, they brought in a trauma surgeon. They cut me all the way open. I had a perforated ulcer which had bled out, which I didn't feel because the pain in my back was so bad. So their surgeons cauterized both sides. I came out of this ICU, HCU, you've got to recover. I'm about to go home after about a month. And the night before I'm about to go home, I project red blood everywhere around the room, can't stop vomiting, back up into ICU, back into surgery. They do both sides again. Lots of surgeons are in trying to cauterize both sides. They do that. I come out and they say, if you vomit blood again, we have to remove your stomach, duodenum, and top of your intestines. Most of my stomach. They could save like a slither of it. So I start vomiting blood. So back in, another massive surgery. Come out of that, I get liver infections, and that's all drained. And eventually I get home from that. Very underweight, now missing most of my stomach, duodenum, and top of my intestines. From there, I get back to work, and I'm actually not in as much back pain. I don't have a period because I'm so underweight. And after about 10 months, it all comes back severely, like really, really badly. This time I'm put on opiates for the pain. I can't use anti-inflammatories. My parents end up becoming my full-time carers. I can't work anymore. I'm basically in a bed. I have a walking stick if I can get up. And the amount of painkillers I was on, I'm not sure if anyone listening understands the amount that I was on, but it was 500 milligrams in the morning of OxyContin, 500 at night. My breakthrough was 60 milligrams 4 times a day of oxycodone, Valium, antidepressants, dexamphetamines, hormones, stomach medications, ketamine, Botox in the spine, local anesthetic in the spine, so many surgeries. This just went on. So eventually they found, by putting me in to chemically induced menopause, this pain went. There was a lot going on still, but what I knew was my pain, which was through my face, into my fingers, down the back of my legs, up my spine, would go. So I said, no more, I can't take this. You give me a hysterectomy. I don't want any more. In my mind, you'd have the hysterectomy, I'd come off everything and I'd live a life. So they did the hysterectomy. It helped a lot more. But then I went into an acute menopause, and I'm only 30 at this stage. And because also I had high levels of estrogen receptors, I really dropped. So, most women are dropping from a certain level of estrogen. I'm dropping from double. So I really suffered for a year. I didn't come off any of the medications I was still on until after a year. And then I was so foggy, I started to drop the medications. And this is when it got really serious. My hair started falling out. I was having constant withdrawals, but it was like my body couldn't take anymore. So I'm like vomiting, diarrhea to constipations. I had to have surgeries. I were like anal surgeries because I was constipated. Then I was needing injections. Then I ended up in ICU a couple of times because they just didn't know how or if I was going to survive, because I was just losing so much weight. My blood work was terrible. They were doing as many tests as they could. What happened at this stage? So now I'm about 34, 35. So at this stage, then I had my first mental health crisis where I literally couldn't remember the trauma that had happened to me. I dissociated from who I was. And remember, I'd basically been in a room for about 10 years. Like I went out a few times highly medicated. when I did, but really had just been my room. So then I'm in a psychiatric unit. It was really horrible. I came off all the rest of the medications, which wasn't much. They put me on new medications, which just didn't work. But because I couldn't really remember what had happened, once I came out, I actually started to do well. I guess your body has a lot of, trauma memory associated with, even when you got to get well, you can stop yourself a lot by your memories. I didn't have those. So like I knew who I was, I knew what had happened, but there was no connection to it. It was like numb. So this 1 year I was on a paleo diet. So I was eating nuts, seeds, vegetables, cooked meat, a meat dish at night. I was able to work for my brother-in-law, and I also was able to get to the gym. And everyone thought I was doing really well, but I think everyone knew what I'd been through as well. And by the end of that year, I was feeling like anxiety coming, but I got shingles through the eye in the trigeminal nerve. And after that, I couldn't get up. I couldn't walk, talk. I ended up with severe PTSD. I couldn't read and write most days. My parents had to dress me. They're my carers again. I ended up in a neurological hospital. They had to teach me to do things again, tie my shoelace, butter bread, talk. So I come out of that. And now I'm severely PTSD. And during this time is when I went vegan as well. And it's like this awake from my first, I guess, psychiatric admission. It's more of like this your soul just cracks, and it's like you start to see truth everywhere and you're trying to grasp at reality. So I had this feeling that I wasn't supposed to eat meat, and I was so self-conscious. The world was like really raw to me, but I had this feeling that I wasn't supposed to eat anything no one was eating me. No one's planning to cook me up for dinner. Did I have a right to do that? So when I'm in hospital, I'm asking for vegan food. I wasn't strict, but I was asking for it. And then I'm in psychiatric hospitals for the next year. I had 9 admissions all up. One was 10 months, most of them acute admissions as well. And I didn't go home for like only 2 visits home. I was basically in a hospital. I'm eating this vegan food, which isn't very appealing, but it's like veggie patties and rice. I'd also be having like Pepsis and stuff. I was still having, processed foods, just trying to get through the days. At the end, I was in private psychiatric hospitals, and they put me on some medication I used to be on, and that kind of triggered something in me. It didn't make me well, for sure, but it linked me back to who I was at some stage. I then went home. I'd always lived at home. I'm about 39 at this stage, and I start to drink to cope with the PTSD. So the PTSD is horrific. Like I'm practically reliving everything constantly. I can't control it. And this numbed it. And I gave myself, I tried to finish a psych degree when I was younger. So I knew alcoholics probably had a couple of years of doing that successfully before they have problems, right? Severe problems, health problems. No, within 2 months, I'm in hospital with liver is starting to fail. I'm needing infusions. And at this stage, my parents have said, I can't do this anymore. You need to move out. So I lived in a hotel for a period of time. And then I then got a place. They helped me get a place. And at this stage, I'd been vegan for about 1.5 to 2 years. And when I lived at home, I ate quite well vegan. Mum went to special effort to make it, but I was drinking it at that time. But in hospital, I was vegan. And in fact, when I was in hospital, when I went vegan, my blood work actually got worse. My blood stopped making proteins. I had nutritionists check me, and they said, you're eating more, especially in these private facilities, you're eating really well, like grilled tofu with big salads. Breakfast is a big muesli with plant milk. Like you're eating quite well. And my blood work was just getting worse. They said you can eat more nuts, but really you're eating what is required. So I've moved out. I'm at this stage making my own food for the first time in my life. So it's very simple. There's salads, there's fruits, and I do some dry roasted pumpkin with dry roasted tomatoes, some herbs, and maybe some garlic. And what I noticed is when I have something as simple as that, or even some steamed cauliflower, I'd end up back in bed for approximately 4 days with all these symptoms. Like in the end, you're just a ball of symptoms. Who knows what is doing what? Heart's racing, can't get up, PTSD, hair's falling out, can't focus, can barely read and write still. So it's not improving greatly. It's very basic. Like to do anything, like to join your phone bill or whatever, I'd need my dad with me to tell them most of the information. I just couldn't recall anything. But when I ate salads and fresh produce, I was able to get down and hang my clothes out. Maybe it took 2 days till I went back and brought them in, but I was like, I could never do that. Like I literally would be hanging onto buildings, my past is like, you barely get down there, run out of breath. And then there's back when I was in pain, you'd have a walking stick, you'd need pain medication. So this was like, oh my gosh. But I'm not able to read what a raw vegan is or even know what I am. But I was able to look at pictures on Instagram, and thankfully so many raw vegans are posting these big salads and these big fruit bowls. And I'm like, hey, I'm a raw vegan. So I just started calling myself raw and ate anything raw. So I'm eating mostly fruit during the day, some dried fruit, maybe some nuts, and then I'd have a salad at night where I'd just put whatever I wanted, including at the start there was fermented foods. And look, within 6 weeks, I've posted a photo on my Instagram. The amount of there's got to be like 30 different diagnoses which just disappeared. Things like tachycardia, PTSD, depression. What else? My hair stopped falling out. I was able to start reading. My chronic fatigue had gone. I was off stomach medications. I was off hormone medications. I had a blood test at that time and my markers had all risen. Gosh, what else? Even my things like my mood and my ability to talk to people. I couldn't talk to anybody. I was in so much less pain. Like it was, you name it, everything just started to turn around. My whole life and look, over the next 6 months, it's important people know, I managed to, so I ended up in that next 6 months getting a job, managing my home. I bought my first apartment. So I actually own my own apartment. I bought my first apartment. What else did I do? I ended up walking each day, swimming in the ocean each day, seeing family and friends. Like it was just like this. It was incredible. The contrast of like having people literally dress me, just staring at a wall and being like paralyzed from, after the shingles and stuff, to next minute, everything's, and not really recovering properly from that. Everything is just getting better and better. And like, look at me now. I'm sharing. I guess I'm doing what inspired me, right? Is I stumbled upon these big pictures of food on Instagram, and that really helped me. And so I share as much as I can about my journey, about food, about my life, oversharing, because I always think there's got to be just that one person out there, and there is, that you can make a difference in their life. So that's basically how this has all come about.
Wow. Okay. I mean, there's so many thoughts that are rushing through my head, and I have a knot in my throat because I got so emotional. First of all, I empathize with the pain. I didn't experience anything like it, but whatever pain I did experience, whatever trauma I've been through, I know it was hard. So I can just imagine the amount that you had to go through and what it did to you. And I am so proud of you for coming out on the other side and not only healing, but actually being here inspiring other people. Because I feel like a lot of times when we're not well, we can get in a place where we feel hopeless, and you experience that. We feel like there is no way out. And doctors, they just don't know. And this actually brought up another thing I thought about as you were speaking, how, unfortunately, allopathic medicine looks at the symptoms and tries to take out what creates the symptoms instead of going to the root cause. And that probably just propagated your suffering, because instead of going, what's going on in this girl? Why her hormones all over the place? Why is she inflamed? Why her immune system is not responding? Or responding too much to her own tissues? What is happening? And I feel like nobody looked at acidosis. Nobody looked at the things that you're actually healing because you're going on a very alkaline diet and you did it yourself. So it wasn't by chance. I think there is this higher self that probably guided you to make those choices, after.
100%.
Yeah.
It definitely is. It's like when, like, I've been to hell and back, hell and back, hell and back, and hit rock bottom. But where I was and how I crawled out, it was like I could see the light around me. So when you're younger and I was unwell, yes, I went to naturopaths. I tried their diet, nothing raw, and it did improve me, but I continued to get sicker to the point where I believed only a drug or a special doctor or some special, like they found some cure. That's how sick and you get like that in the head, and you read so much. But when I came out of this, it was like, even from my first mental health crisis, it was like my higher self was shining. Nature was glowing, and I was supposed to take the keys, like they're like keys. You got to, grab the fruit, be out in nature, all of this stuff, because it wasn't just the food. The calling was to be out in nature. I remember being really just moving out. I had to be under the moon, whether my bed was there or whether I could get myself out and just sit there in the cold with a tea. And then during the day, most of my day was spent outside, even to the point I'd rip my shoes off and have my feet rubbed in the soil. You're right. It's so true. All of that contributed to me in the ocean, and all the thoughts I had were like childlike thoughts that were just, guiding me. But as for the doctors, it's what is so sad is all of them care a lot, and they study, because you can't be a doctor unless you want to help people in some way. That I don't think the money does it enough, but they're so what they've studied, they're so far down rabbit holes. Like, you read a physiology book and you think you know a lot, but imagine having to read like so many of them, and then you're reading only about a toe or only about hormones, and then it's only about certain hormones, and they're so far down they can't turn around. You go to them and you say, look, I've also got a flu, and they say you need to go to your GP. Or your back hurts and it's not your pelvis, you need to go to a physio. Like it's all. And what's really sad is each of these people care, but they can't see. But I guess that's all part of their journey too.
Yeah, it is. And there's definitely a system in place to prevent them from seeing. But even naturopathic medicine is being taken a turn. And I want to actually hear about your story with them, what kind of diets they put you on, because I'm studying naturopathy and traditional naturopathy mostly. So raw food is one of the biggest things, because the IG movement is where it all started. But I don't know if you know Dr. Robert Morse, but
yes.
Yeah. So I love him because it's just like, they just don't get it. Like the body needs certain things, especially for neurological issues, and to just build up your body. Fruit. And it's true that even naturopathic doctors I've talked to, even my colleagues or even friends that are studying naturopathy, sometimes they do get kind of taught the wrong things, and we're getting too much into things like, supplementation, instead of going back to the food and raw food at that. So I'd love to hear what your experience with naturopathic doctor was, that you just like, okay, I need somebody else that just gives me a solution.
First off, I will say that the only person who's actually resonated with me medically or naturopathically since I've been this way was Dr. Morse. So, everyone's different and does things differently, but overall I listen to what he says. I'm like, it just makes sense. Acids and bases, like it's all over the body. You can name it whatever you want. It just resonated with me. As for naturopaths, they were some of the first when I got unwell. When you first go to a doctor and they don't know, you go to naturopaths. And a lot of the time it was a diet which usually the diet, now I'm thinking back because I was back in my teens at this stage, but it was fruit and vegetables, but it was also meats. And it was basically all the processed food had been taken out. And then some things weren't there, like onions or, certain foods that were irritants. And I would go on them. And I think it would help for a few weeks. But in my mind, and sadly, I think this might be the case for many people, in my mind, we're so used to knowing that you go to a doctor from when you're a child and they give you a cure. So in my mind, this was going to fix me so I could go and hang out with my friends and have Pepsi and pizza is how I think what was in my mind. But in truth, it didn't help enough it didn't completely get rid of what was going on. And this is at the very first stage of what was going on. It's also, I think, where I came from, all the cards had to fall in the right place for me to have the strength to do what I did. I just think it was, I don't know. I think also when you're younger, a lot of times you're told by your parents to do this, teachers to do this, other people to do this, and you're just like a robot, and I think that would have been part of the problem is, I'd seen many specialists since I was little, and this was just another one. I also, actually, this stuck with me. So when I say I had very basic thoughts and had like a spiritual awakening, it was as if I was given glimmers of what I should be doing my entire life, but you're so blinded by all the overstimulation, you miss them. But it was like I was reminded of things that worked. So there was a chiropractor, an osteopath who was also a naturopath, and he had the same diet for everybody who had it didn't matter what it was. And that was, you eat only fruit and vegetables, including cooked foods, for 2 days. So for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's all you eat. And then every second night you can have whatever you want. That really worked very well. But I remember losing weight very quickly, and he said, you need to eat more. And back then it wasn't for me, but it came back to me that worked when I was, I guess, in my own apartment, your own thoughts. It was one of those moments which adds to pushing you in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I do think that theory of his, it is like Dr. Morse, right? It's the same, basically the same for everybody. We think we're what is it? We're kind of brainwashed into thinking we're all so different. But as Oprah says, as much as we all are different, we are all the same.
I mean, I totally agree. I think the base of everything should be the same for everybody, and then you tweak depending on what somebody's going through. And that's the difference. It's not so much that, oh yeah, this guy can be a carnivore, and that it's like, no, everybody actually is a frugivore, really. And then and we can have vegetables, sure. And then you tweak. Some people might have different needs because of their lifestyle, or maybe because something, biological is happening in their body, but you can tweak that, but the base should always be the same. So I found that fascinating as well, because I feel like, in science especially, we can always look at an angle and miss out the big picture. And I think that's what happens in most scientific realm. And this is why medicine has become all about treating symptoms and pushing drugs instead of actually healing the person. And there is such a pushback against people that talk about healing as a whole. And as you said earlier, perfectly, we have a doctor for every inch of our body, and they never work together to look at the full picture. And I'm like, I'm a full person though. Everything works together.
That's right. And we wonder why we never feel whole when the whole world is compartmentalized. Most of us, and you're right. And it becomes excitement for them as well. So if you've studied your whole life science and you're in a lab and you're looking for the cure for cancer, if you find even something, it excites you to take that away. It's like taking a toy from a child. So they can't comprehend that you don't need any of that. You can start with the fruits and then work from there. And what I found is when I got well is the more closer to nature I was, the healthier I got. So I had to get rid of chemicals as well in my life. Everything was aggravating me. The more time spent outside and away from a screen, I got better. The more I got rid. So I was taking some supplements that just came to me at the time. Like I think I was taking flaxseed oil. When I was eating only fruits, I found it very, very strong. Everything was really strong. But what came to me is how eating the fruits and the vegetables, it was like my cells were connecting to other cells. So everything, even in a tablet form, anything I pulled a face at was a key to me not to have. We're not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to enjoy. So it was like, so I really stayed away from anything. And I think I was just so sensitive. My body had been through so much. It just couldn't take, any much than just nature.
That's the source, right? At the end of the day. How about your parents? Because I'm sure when they they couldn't cope with it anymore and was probably traumatic for them too. How did you heal together as a family? Because I'm sure this definitely encompasses the psychological and spiritual realm as well. And for you, you said that you had a mental breakdown, which of course then, reflects in how we deal with other people. And maybe it was the dark night of the soul as well, coming out at the same time. So.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So how was for you to heal that relationship with them?
How I see it is when we're in that much despair and that much trauma, had I not at some aspect already given up on myself, even when you're still fighting, to be in that much suffering is almost self-put there. So I know it's part of my journey, but I don't blame anybody else for where I was. I blame myself. My eyes were closed and now they're open. So when you have no self-love, no respect, no way through, and all you're doing is just rote functioning, like what you've learnt of things. So you've just kind of got tablets, you've got heat packs, it's very like, and then there's alcohol. It's not love. It's kind of like you've learnt all of these behaviors. How do you love that? I didn't obviously love me at that time. And that's how I see it, is they tried and they loved me at a family level. But how much love I found for myself when I healed, like I can't express how, as I healed, this voice was just so loving in my head. It's like, oh, this tastes nice. I feel good. You can go try do this now. There was no sick feeling with it. And then that grew. So I healed very much in isolation. So it was just me. I lived, when I moved out, I lived basically in hotels. It was my brother-in-law, my sister that would help me. But from a distance, they would just basically make sure I had a roof over my head each night. Then you'd heal a bit because you're away, and they helped me get the apartment. But they were very away and I didn't even want them in my space. I think healings are when you heal that deeply, it's very personal. And slowly, as I loved me, when I could be around them for small periods, I could show love, and then you can bond. It's like I never knew me, so I never knew them. Our relationships are so different now. But that's how we healed as a family. And you could look at it as in a lot of pain, but I think I take it as in there's no blame on anybody. But this is, if you look how we're born into a world where so much is projected onto us, and I took all that. Nature was right in front of me the whole time, but I had to go through what I did and find that love and take the hand of nature and myself. So I can't take love and raw foods away from each other. Like they're like that. So the bond I have now is incredible. But that's how that healing went. And plus my mum has Lyme's disease, so she's going through her own. And so it got just too much, once I came back and the drinking, and then I'm in hospital again and it's too much stress. So I don't have any like, oh, someone should have done something. Like I really learned that it was me that needed to love me this entire time. And the other thing I needed to take from it is value yourself. If your body's telling you something, you've got to value that. So I feel like that even that calling, when I was telling you that naturopath taught me that special diet, that kind of, I knew helped me. Even if it helped me like at a certain level, I should have taken that in my stride, like, and gone. And then you add to it, you feel good by the water, you add more and more. But I didn't. So once I did, love just blossomed. So
amazing.
Yeah.
When did the drinking start for you?
So it's in stages. So when I had like the first break with reality and lost a lot of my memory, I was 35, 36, maybe a bit older, about 36. Then I came out of that, had that year when I was paleo. Then I got the shingles, and then I couldn't do anything. And then I was in psychiatric hospitals for about a year. over a year. And then I came out, and remember I told you they put me on medication, which just got me functioning. And then so I'm back home after really being absent in hospitals for about a year. And when I'd have dinner on a Friday night with my family, we'd always, and all the years I've been sick, I really didn't drink at all. Like when I was younger, I might go out and binge every now and then. But just for the past 10 years, all that pain, I'd never drunk. And then I came back from hospital, and I'd have on a Friday night a wine. Dad would have wine. So I would have that, and all of my PTSD just shrunk. I would talk more. I thought I was doing better. My doctors knew I was drinking anywhere from a bottle of wine a day. I could constantly just sip on it. It would just numb everything. But then so many health problems came so quickly from it. And, I was so sick at this stage and barely functioning. And it was just keeping me able to cope with the monster I felt like I was. Like I literally was like this shell. I couldn't do anything. I needed other people to do most of the things. It helped me, what I thought helped me, deal with all that. That's where that came in. So it was only, it's all a bit blurry, but it could have only been 8 months where you discover the alcohol. You're not really an alcoholic, but you're having alcohol, and then you work out that you're going to have it, more than the Friday night. And then after a few months of drinking all day, I'm in hospital. And then when I tried to go to rehab, and I was just too sick, and that's when I was staying in hotels. And then when I moved out by myself, I drank 3 more times. And each time I did, I'd end up just wetting the bed, and there'd be blood in the bed. There was I was so sick, and I knew when I wasn't doing that and I was eating plant-based, I wasn't doing perfect, but I was doing better. But I couldn't, I don't know, I kept going back, but I knew I couldn't keep doing that at some level.
Yeah, I feel like you are explaining the exoteric, so the manifestation of it in the body form, but it almost feels like you were under attack as well spiritually, because your higher self was guiding you in a certain way. And then, there are dark forces. I mean, Dr. Morris will talk about this too, that intervene and make us, make choices that perhaps are not the best choices for us, and try to lead us away from our real calling, who we really are. Because in the end of the day, if we become the light we're meant to be, going back to source, I think, it's scary for a world that actually dwells in this very dark energy, because we are in a very special earth, right, that is managed by these forces. And I'm not saying it's a bad place. It just, you need to shine the light very bright to change things. And, the more people that like you are waking up and are changing that, the more transformation happens, the more, because the ripple effect of your story is not, it's huge on you, because obviously it's like such a change from being sick to being healthy. But then it's the ripple effect of kindness. We're not hurting other animals. We're not hurting the planet. We're caring for other people. We're trying to be compassionate. We're trying to be understanding and supportive. But at the same time, you probably learned boundaries, because you said you were in a victim mode, which is a very toxic place to be. And you probably recognize that in others. So when you can help, and when your help needs to be, I planted the seed and I cannot be there. So I like to actually kind of segue into your coaching work that you do, and how you support the people that are coming to you, or maybe they're not coming to you, but they're talking to you.
So what I noticed, most people who I coach resonate with something of my story. They've seen me somewhere. So I have people who have been extremely sick like me, but because of my story, they have hope. So I think what happens is you have such a unique story, and we all have unique stories, but you look to trust in someone, you look for something familiar. And that belief, I think, is the hugest step in them being able to trust what's occurring. Because I mean, with the raw foods and letting go, basically you're letting go of everything you've been taught, right? And that's the scariest thing ever. Like, it's the raw food. You can create beautiful things. It tastes good, but letting go of what you're told, what's on the TV, what teachers have said, universities, everything, you have to go, nope, I have to trust in my body and somebody. So most people who come to me are very sick. Others have mental health problems. But what I noticed with the raw foods, and it's just your spirit is so intertwined here, is from the first day I speak to somebody to when they say 4 weeks through working with me to 5 weeks, mentally, they're not constantly darting back. It's like by the time I guess you're 30 or 40, you're living in PTSD. Like the amount that living in this world just creates that psyche of PTSD. And these people, and that's part of how I believe I healed, is when you think forward and speak of yourself in the future and not blocked. So when a lot of people speak, you go to say, how many times a day you go to the toilet? Oh, not as much as I used to. And then there was blood. And then, they divert constantly, and they've lived like, and that's what chronic illness does. So you can't distinguish between, the spirit, the, mental aspect, and then the physical aspect. But as these people go through, it's just like, it's amazing that is one of the first things. And I think you end up talking yourself at some frequency in the body. Well, like what you say, and it's funny because I don't have a TV, and I love nature and I love life, and I live by myself. So from where I came from, where I was, very medicated, they're giving me protein drinks, eating sugary foods, watching movies, is the other day a gun came on the screen, and it's only because I'm on social media, and that is so rare because I'm usually watching things that lift me. My heart like starts to beat, and what happens is this is just an example of how my life has shifted to high frequency vibrations. Like I'm only drawn to, waterfalls and gratitude, and because that makes me feel good. And that I came from a world where, and so did most people, where we're kind of, so much is put on us that is constantly making us in that PTSD mode, right? Where just if I see a gun, I know that the shape, the look, the metal, everything associated with it makes me at some frequency sick at some level. And you think of how often this is, there's police ads on television. People walk past people, every day. And that it's what I guess the gun example is quite small for me, but it just shows when anybody comes to me, how much, even without physical, just say no one had a physical symptom and they want to improve their health, how much is imprinted on someone. They've got to let all of that go. And you've got to, I guess you've got to want to do it too.
You do. That's why even in nutrition school, when I studied to become a holistic nutritionist, our mentor was like, if somebody is in a state of victimhood, you cannot help them, because when they're there, they do not want to heal. And for somebody that is a healer, that's really hard because you want to help people. But it's true that if they don't want to do it, you cannot do it for them. So it's an empowering, and I think a lot of the times, even if we are traumatized by reality and we have a lot of PTSD, I agree with you. Those triggers are familiar, so a lot of people can't even let go of them. It's like
there's a comfort in that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a lot of people fall asleep watching crime TV.
Yes.
As in, that's their comfort. But it's a hard one. But in what I always say is just shine. So I don't think I change as many lives by what I say as by what I do. So when I go out each time to a restaurant and I turn up with my spring water and I order a salad, I know everyone there watching, and I know I make an imprint. People leave and they Google what is a raw vegan. Next time you see someone, they're like, oh, we were talking about that for ages. Just being you and shining your light is that's how you change it. That's how you shift somebody. You can't talk them into or out of, that you're doing this wrong. You need to do it. No, if you just be the example of what the raw foods is, or whatever you're doing, the nature that you're connected to, the whatever lifestyle, let that speak. So you stand there and people want to know more before you open your mouth.
Absolutely. And you said your mom has Lyme's disease. As she's seen your transformation, did she follow in your footsteps on the raw food?
So she's seen my transformation. She's tried it. Unfortunately, she doesn't feel she can do it. So I wish she would do it. It's hard, but I also strongly I know it's her journey. So what I know is nothing I say, all I can do is keep being me. Um, and yeah, and it's part of, and I think what I have to say here is the strength I have now in what I do and who I am now, I built because of the torture I went through. So anyone on their journey, you can't really rush what they've got to learn, because the skills I have weren't taught at school.
Yeah.
You definitely get them from life school. So I also have a respect for where people are in that sense of it.
Yeah, that's very mature, and again speaks volume about what we talked about, because I feel like especially when they are our family, we really want them to do well, right? Because we love them. So it's disappointing and it's infuriating sometimes when they just like, you have an example in front of you and you're doing nothing but the opposite. So it's like um that, so yeah, well, so well done for being able to detach from that feeling and just being able to respect the space she's in. And I have so how long have you been well for now?
So I call it 2 years. So I was in June raw for 2 years. So within 6 weeks, I was living what I would call a normal-ish life. I mean, it progressed, but yeah, so 2 years.
So that's an interesting timing, because obviously we also had a lot happening in the world, all the lockdowns, a lot of the craziness. And I'm just wondering, how did you navigate that period? Because then that was the tail end of your struggle, getting better. How did you navigate that period? That must have been quite something.
So COVID was living the dream to me because everyone was finally doing what I had to do my entire life. So it was normal for me to be home. So there was this element of relief during COVID. The word COVID didn't even bother me because of what I've been through. I'm like, I've heard it, I've seen it, this isn't going to take me out type thing. That side of it didn't bother me. And it gave me the ability to get well. So I literally got well as we came out of COVID. So as I was out in public, everyone was isolating. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to get used to life because I didn't know it. So that, and then when like everyone could do something again, they were all anxious and nervous, and I just fitted right in. So it kind of was this, it was perfect for me. A lot of the time it was hard for me to understand what people were worried about, what people were talking about, why people felt sad because they were at home. And this was before I was, I guess, raw for that long. I'm like, you're just whinging. Like that was my mindset. Because in my mind, I've been doing it forever. Yeah. But what was sad was when I first what was sad is when I first started going out again with everybody else, and everyone's telling me I have to get
that thing,
the vaccination, and anything that didn't resonate with me, I would fume. Like I was very sensitive, and this infuriated me. But I also hadn't lived. So it was this catch-22 is now I'm well, and then I didn't understand that I would have to still not be allowed to do anything. So I had them, and isn't it funny? The first one, I got sick a few days later, but when they injected the second one, I'd been raw at this stage for say 3-4 months. So just all raw food, no toxins in my life. I almost collapsed and they had to put me on a mat. And that wouldn't have even been realistically that it had taken effect. It had just been, my body was so clean. So that part is really sad. I think if it was now, I'm me. Well, at the start, I was still just learning to read and write again. And I was very aware that my emotions spoke to me and that I didn't want to have it. But that's where I ended up with that.
Thank you for being open about that. A lot of people feel very triggered by talking about it, but I think it's an important conversation to have. Because I feel like everybody was cohorted, and I actually saw a video. This was in Australia, where the government said that they never forced people to even take it. And it's like, you told people that they will lose their jobs. It's kind of a blackmail. And it's like nobody takes responsibility. And it fascinates me how the people that have been forced to take it, because a lot of people like you just felt like, why? Like, and they were told to take it. They don't want to go back and question things. They don't want to stay alive because it's such a, well, it's, again, another trauma, right? There is PTSD from that period. A lot of people have it. And I think a lot of the way people are, the woke in, I don't know actually the right word, because the woke is not the right word, because that they're not woke at all. But the like people that are awakened to the bigger picture, I guess they feel like, we did all this. We literally made people fearful of themselves or others, of the world, of losing the job, losing what they had. We blackmailed them. We pushed them to the edge until their mental health was struggling. And now the people that did that don't want to take responsibilities. And the people that were victimized in a way, they don't want to even see it. So they're like, it's fine. It's over now. We're just moving on. So it's like, wow, so I'm glad that you're acknowledging how you were feeling and why you didn't. And if you had to do it now, you wouldn't. You stood up, you would stand up for it, because again, it's another testament that when you know yourself, when you're rooted in truth, nobody can really push you to do things that are not resonating. They're not truth, and I like that.
Yeah, it is. It's to me, I look at what that is as just another element of there is so many things that are like that in the world. Like, that's why I say to people are like, isn't eating raw food hard? And I said, no, eating raw food's easy. It's beautiful. It tastes great. I said, what's hard is you walk out each day into a world which blasts you with what you do. Have, McDonald's or have this burger, and then you walk down the street past an Italian restaurant and you've got to smell it. Then you walk past a convenience shop that's flashing lollies and bright lights at you. I said, every step you take, you have to stay true to what you are, because the entire world, even people, what they're talking about is constantly what they've got in their hand is something that I don't eat. And that's the difficult part. And I think that is part of the COVID thing, right, at a different level. It's all at different levels, is finding that truth. But I still think it's so true what you said. There's just your higher self is really shining where you should be. Especially when I got well, I don't have feelings of guilt or shame or negativity. And even when I talk about, the COVID shot, or I talk about something that doesn't resonate with me, it's like my blood boils, as in I can't connect to it. It's not for me. That's how I know it's not the same as that horrible self-talk and that darkness, which so many of us can live in. The world can be so beautiful. It really can.
Totally, 100%. And I, by the way, had the same reaction as you when everything locked down. I was like, I need this time, because I was also healing, and it was brilliant. So I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm really happy that everything's standing still, because I just need a break. I feel like I was on a train that never stopped, and my adrenals just needed it. I was like, oh, finally. So that in a way was really good. I mean, I was still dealing with things at home, but it was more like the emotional stuff. So it's interesting. But so let's talk about your diet, because I wanna really talk about the brightness of the food that you're eating and how you source them and how you feel. And especially now, that's a good time to talk about, it's winter, so obviously access to some things might be a little bit challenging, how you navigate that. So talk me through your food.
Okay, so when I first started, I mean, nothing much has changed, but when I first started, as I said, it was anything raw. So it was mostly fruits all day, and I would have dried fruits back then. I don't do that now. And then there was also some nuts and seeds. I don't eat nuts and seeds anymore. Also, there was some like dried spice and things, which I don't have anymore. I guess I just got fresher. There was a real calling as I got well that I'd look in my bowl, whether fruit or whether it was salad, and it was like the food spoke to me. So it was like the fruits and the salad was so bright, And anything else like nut butters look kind of dead, fermented food looked dead. So that was that intuition again that pulled me to what I eat today. So Australia, we are so lucky. We really have great produce. So where I am now, and especially it is winter, what I eat at the moment is a lot of apples, which work for me. We're able to get some great watermelons from the Northern Territory, which are great. Unfortunately, when I first started this, I could eat lots of bananas. Now I can get affected. I get really, really sleepy. I think it's the histamines and a bit swollen. So I tend to stay away from those. I have papaya. I do have dates, medjool dates. Still, I know I don't have other dried fruits, but I have those. And that tends to go all day. Sometimes I might snack on some spinach or something as well, or I may add in a juice, but usually I'm just constantly eating fruit. Then at night is where the fun happens. That's where I love to get creative. And I have either massive salads, or at the moment, because it's winter, I have a dehydrator. And what I usually do is make the dish. Like there's an example, I did a coconut and broccoli stir fry. So I made the sauce for some zoodles. So you got your zucchini noodles. I've got the broccolini chopped up in a bowl with some capsicum chopped up, and then I'll create a sauce which will have things like lemon, celery, coconut, maybe a bit of turmeric, a little bit of spice. I'll also add a bit of date just to sweeten that. I'll pour the sauce through, and then I'll lay it out on my dehydrated trays and put it in the dehydrator for about 2 hours so it warms it, because it's winter. And so it's not really dehydrating, it just slightly warms it. So that's my go-to trick at the moment. But I do that. I also blend like sweet potato soups in the Vitamix so they're a little bit warm. I found I struggled more this winter than last winter. Last winter I was still doing salads, a few soups, but this winter I feel like it's like I kind of feel that my body got me really well, and now I've got to do the like deeper healing, if that makes sense. Or I feel like my adrenals really showed through their weakness, as in the cold I really felt this year. I was really into like wanting cozy things. So there was more soups. Like I do sweet potato, I do pumpkin, and that's really helped me. And I call it getting through winter. And our winter's only about 3 months. And, we just spoke about that. Before that, when it was summer, went on grapes. They were going to pull a tooth. I had terrible tooth pain, and I'd been watching Dr. Morse and read the book, Joanna Brandt, and I'm like, why? I give other people advice to go and, do what Dr. Morse says. Why don't I go on the grapes? So I did that. Pain went within 4 days, stayed in it 3 weeks. Rest of summer, I basically ate grapes all day, would have a light salad at night, really simple salad. So I really found in the contrast, right? So summer, it was just like, I was like, give me these fruits. And then winter, I was needing more vegetables at night, like the rebuild. But truthfully, I felt this winter my weakness more than I had before. And we're just coming out of winter now in August. Like it's getting warmer, and I'm wanting more and more fruits, and I'm excited for the summer fruit. So that's what I'm eating. That's amazing. At the moment.
And how important for you is to have organic?
So when I got well, nothing was organic. It was from a supermarket or from the local fruit shop, and I felt amazing. When I did the grapes only, I healed at day 4. The pain had gone. By day 10, I had such severe neurological symptoms, had the twitching in the eye, twitching in the arm, restless. I couldn't get through a day of work, and my brain kept telling me, you've got to try organic. And when I say my brain, I really mean my subconscious, or maybe my self, because it's the key is that other people keep saying, oh, you do know there's sulfur on that, and it kind of sits with you, or you do, you read about it and you should do organic. But I did so well on conventional. I'm like, anyway, so on the way home from work, which I barely got through that day, I stopped at the organic market and got organic grapes. Within 2 hours, I was up again. Neurological symptoms were going. It was incredible. It was like night and day. I'm so sensitive though. And I went on organic, and then I started thinking, have I got problems because I'm not eating organic? So after that, I started eating organic. I felt a lot
clearer. And as time's gone on, what's happened, I still eat mostly organic. Sometimes I'll grab an avocado that's not, or a bag of tomatoes. But what I've noticed is as time's gone on, I am just appreciating the richness of nutrients. You can literally taste it in the organic produce. And it's like taking 4 steps backwards when you have the conventional. It's missing. I can't describe it, what it is, because it's like the reason it tastes so good is we as humans and frugivores are supposed to be enjoying the nutrient abundance that we're being given. And it doesn't have that. It's kind of, I will eat it, at a restaurant or whatever, but yeah. So that's where I stand with organic.
And if somebody is coaching with you and they're like, well, I can't afford all organic, do you go buy the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen?
No, what I do is, and I guess it's the same sort of thing, is I'm more of the mindset, it depends where they're starting at as well. So if you're just starting, I really think there's a process of having to cut things out. Like, it's a huge step to change your entire life. So usually I say, if they can't afford it, I'm like, that's fine, you do conventional. Just keep in mind, I'm usually talking about anything with skin on or grown in the ground, like carrots. I'm like, if you can, grab the carrots, which are organic. But what I learned, and I really respect the process that I took, is I don't think any person can wake up and just automatically cut out everything they've known and just fill their life with organic, start growing, and that's it, not go back. Just, I really respect the steps I took, like, that it was a year and a half of conventional, and then I stepped up again. It's like elevating.
Yeah.
So I really guide a lot with what I did, because it worked really, really well. But yeah, I make people, very mindful. But if someone's already on a raw diet, organic can be the night and day for them, where they're already very, very cleansed, let's say, doing really well, very enlightened, very elevated. It can be that next step up. But if somebody's just starting and they have the ability to fill their fridge every week with just raw produce, yeah, I'm all for that. Just as, be mindful that, there are, things like, carrots, strawberries, things in the ground, and things with skin.
Yeah, totally. We grow a lot here, but I also sometimes don't have certain produce and I have to find it. And organic is available, but it's not as widely available as I wish it were. So, I get everything that I can organic, but sometimes it is not. And then, like you, I'm like, you know what? If I'd rather eat it, like I'd rather eat something that is good for me, like a piece of fruit, than not. So that's the compromise. If I can find that organic, it's just a bonus,
I think also what happens is I believe is if you restrict in any way, you'll end up blowing out in a different way.
Yeah.
If you're saying I'm feeling like carrots and you can't get them organically, you go and get them, because I swear it comes out, cravings or the need for something will come out so loud, you'll end up having some dish from Taco Bell or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happens. So that's what my mindset, I'm like, I'm better off just, buying the strawberries and the, broccoli or whatever I'm going to buy because I'm craving it. It's not that, it's not the end of the world. Like, what would be really horrible for me is to go back, for me personally, to cooked food, because I just, not for me.
So how do you navigate when you see your family and friends? If they invite you over, are they respectful of your lifestyle, or do you normally bring a dish?
Okay, so part of I have a website called Raw Skye, and part of when I got well was I was determined to live the life I wanted and just do it raw. So whenever I go to a restaurant, I call ahead, I'll look at any fresh stuff they've got. I make my own salad, so they'll have a garden salad, and I'll be like, I can see pomegranate there, I can see coriander, I can see avocado, add them to the salad. I'll be there on the day I want to. If I'm going to a friend's barbecue or something, I will make my own food. They will have some and I'll eat most of it. Everyone loves that I'm out, like that I'm not dead. Everyone thought I was going to die, right? So they're happy whether I'm having watermelon or whatever. They're just so happy that I'm there. That's how that plays out. But on my website, I actually have like lots and lots and lots of each restaurant I go to. I put a photo up and then I put how I ordered, what I did. I've also got a page of my tricks and tips for people, because I don't do it to eat the salad. I do it because it's somebody's birthday or Father's Day or Mother's Day, or on the weekend it was my sister's 40th. It was fully catered for in one of the most expensive hotel penthouses in Sydney, and I ate apples and I had a dance, had some spring water, and everyone's like, that's just Skye. So I own it. I like to own it. Like, you know, don't feel ashamed of it. I love it, actually, because it actually gets people talking. Everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows what I'm doing. They're like, oh, I love that you do that. I wish I could do that. And you look so well. So I like to represent the raw foods.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. Oh, amazing. Okay, tell me a little bit about your coaching so that we can share with people how they can work with you and where they can find you. And then we'll post everything in the show notes for them to reach out to you.
Sure.
And yeah.
Sure. Okay. So on the Raw Skye website, you can get my coaching, which is there. And the best way to really do the coaching with me is there's a 7-week program there. And I just find when people do that, the difference is like night and day. So there's one-on-one coaching for an hour and 2 hours, but truthfully, I have the most success when people do the 7 weeks. Like, the transformations are just incredible. So yeah, it'd be great if you link that below. So if anybody wants to go across and
Absolutely.
and I coach people no matter what they've got going on, whether they're, you know, have a myriad of health problems, whether they just want to get healthy. Some people just want a session where they just want to actually just know more. Some people, because like me, not many people know what raw foods are. So
yeah. Actually, I have one last question, if you don't mind, that came to me. You know, you're such like a bright light of positivity, which is amazing. But I'm sure you faced some controversy and so some, you know, pushback, because that's the world. How do you deal with people that say that maybe what you're doing is not healthy, or that you're not helping people because, you know, raw is not the natural diet? Like, how do you deal with that?
So first off, my healing is quite extraordinary. So when anybody says anything, what I've come up against, I've never come up against it until recently. The more I post YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, I'll get a myriad of comments underneath. And all I have to do is link one of my reels of my transformation, because people usually are like, you're dying, they're quite horrible. You look 100, it goes on. But then what I looked like before and how I am now. And also, I also say to people, you know, I was in bed for 30, I try and reply to most comments and say, I was in bed for 32 years and now I'm up because of this food. You know, what do you think? And most people just don't write back. That's my story, because I'm not, you know, I know a lot of people go through the healing and they can do, like, there's a time where it's not always pleasant. They don't look the best. So my journey makes my, you know, how I respond to people, you know, I have ammunition, basically. I have, like, look what I used to look like. I think it's part of their journey. So, you know, just how I was down and out, an alcoholic, no home, had to rebuild, had to find the strength to get through that, to rise, you know, and know that I was okay to eat the raw foods. Part of the comments and the facing of what relatives say, you know, there's no protein, you're not getting enough, that's not right. That's part of your strength building. It's part of, you know, that healing that you need to go through, and you answer them however you need. And even if you spend less time around people while you build your confidence around the foods, because you will build your confidence. But just know that any negativity that comes in, it's just there to build that strength inside of you. When you come out, like, you learn. Like Ed Sheeran says, we don't learn from our successes, we only ever learn from our failures. So he basically was saying, you know, all the Grammys or whatever he's got, he learns nothing, he gets cheered on, right? He's proud, but every mistake or whatever, that's where he learns. So anything that's, you know, negative or doesn't feel good is we're there to learn.
Absolutely. And you probably have blood tests to show the difference as well between then and now, right?
Yeah, so each blood test, my blood work just got better and better and better, to the point where, because I'm missing my stomach, essentially my duodenum is where I've been severely anemic since I had it removed. So I'd have to have iron infusions every 3 months, B12 shots as well. So first I will stay on the iron topic. So since I went raw, I didn't want any of that stuff in my body. And each time I went back, my iron levels were rising to the point where he can't believe, because I'm missing the organ which absorbs most of the iron in the body, the duodenum. So I was told in hospital, for the rest of my life, you need these infusions. I've healed my anemia, and everyone thinks there's no iron in what I'm eating. But in fact, a lot of, I think, reason iron isn't being absorbed in people is the inflammation. But anyway, I'm going off there. But and the same with the B12. He said my B12's fine. So when I first was getting well, I did have an injection, and then he said, don't do that again. It's gone too high. And now it's just sitting above, like, he goes, it's all fine. Like, my blood work is basically perfect. I also healed my liver. So the damage to my liver took the longest. But each time I went, the markers were going up and up. So I have what he says is just perfect.
And are you on any medication now at all?
None. I dropped all that medication back at the start. It was like I could feel it. It was any chemical, and my body may have needed the compounds, right? But it couldn't handle the chemicals anymore. Like, the chemicals were literally like, my body was like, no.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Even hormone, you're not doing hormone replacement therapy.
Hormone was the hardest mentally to let go of, because it helped me when I got severely depressed, when it that dropped. As soon as I went on the estrogen, large doses of estrogen, because of, I told you the estrogen receptors, that had been 10 years. That was my constant crutch. Yeah. So that was the last go, but it's a patch. And the chemical it would enter my skin straight away, and I'd have to rip it off. It was, the more you go into this, the more you just can't tolerate chemicals.
Yeah.
I resonate. I went and I felt unstimulated first off, but then I just felt better and better and just forgot about it. That's the thing. You just end up forgetting about it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Skye, thank you so much for making the time. I know it's quite late. It's evening in Australia, so I don't want to take your evening away from you. And I'm grateful for the work that you do and for sharing so openly. Your journey is extraordinary. Like, I've never actually come across somebody that healed so much. And I know that since I work, with Dr. Morris, I mean, I must say, like, I actually hear stories that I never once in my life even came across, and it's wonderful, like, to see how people can heal from anything. But
yeah,
your story just, oof. I mean, when you were talking to me, I'm like, is it not over yet? She had more. So I really respect you for being here, being positive, shining through, like, really allowing yourself to be open, no matter the criticism, knowing that you're standing in truth and that you can actually help others as you helped yourself. So thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really loved this talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Skye, for being on the show, and thank you everyone for staying on. I hope you enjoyed the story, her journey, Skye's continuous work and inspiration to others as she continues to heal her body. It's amazing. I really had to hold back the tears a few times, especially when she was sharing what she went through. I could not imagine. I have so much respect, and I'm in total awe of her courage and her strength. This is amazing. As promised, all the details for Skye's work are in the show notes, so if you need help, if you want support with your journey, if you're sick, or if you want to just try to get better, feel free to reach out to her. She really is an inspiration. Alright guys, as always, if you like the show, please do rate us and give us a nice little feedback and share so we can continue growing, and I'll see you next week. Bye!